Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. It is March, which means it's time for me to do my spring TBR. My last TBR, the winter one, I actually did really well with it. I read 14 out of the 17 books. The only ones that I didn't get to were Heist by Tate James, Losers Part 2 by Harley LaRue. I did read Part 1. I'll get to Part 2 eventually. And Anastasia by Sophie Lark. I've been pushing that one off for some reason, but I do eventually want to get to trying out her first fantasy romance. But some of my highlights from winter: Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, Savage Hearts by JT Geisinger, The Frat Boy by Nikki Sloan, which is one of my favorites from 2022, Losers Part 1, and Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. And then for my spring TBR, I know I said I didn't get to the one fantasy romance that was on my winter TBR, but I have quite a few fantasy romances on this new TBR. But before I get into all the books that I'll be reading in the next 3 months, I do have a sponsor for today's video. Today's video is sponsored by Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a book box subscription service. Every single month you get your choice of one of their 5 to 7 hardcovers that are featured for that month. If you're looking for a box that features new releases, mostly new releases every single month, then Book of the Month is for you. And the great thing about it is that you can choose from a whole bunch of different genres. So if you love romance or fantasy or historical, there's something for you. For the month of March, they do have an offer going on. You can join a Book of the Month, get your first box for $9.99 using the code CHEERS. So for this month's selections, I got these 2 books. This one is The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. It's historical fiction with a mystery. There's some suspense. And the other one is a fantasy book. It's The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. The heroine here is a very notorious pirate. Again, if you want to join Book of the Month, you can use the code CHEERS to get your first book, your first box for $9.99. I'll have a link to join in my description. Thank you again to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. Alright, so for my spring TBR, I have 13 books on this list. Technically, a couple of them are a series, but I do have 13 authors that I want to get to for spring. Like I mentioned, spring is all about the fantasy romances for some reason for me, so I have Bewitched by Laura Thalassa on my TBR. I got this beautiful art copy in the mail and I am dying to get to it. It's a brand new fantasy romance from Laura Thalassa. I've been dying for a new series from her since the Four Horsemen series ended, which actually ended maybe 2 years ago. Laura Thalassa didn't come out with any new release in 2022, I think. So it's been a while from her and I am so excited to get to this new book. It's a new adult fantasy romance. The heroine finds that she actually has magical powers and she accidentally awakens this powerful ancient god who is the hero. He's ancient evil, so I guess we have sort of an anti-hero here, and he thinks that the heroine is his long dead wife who betrayed him. There's also some amnesia. The heroine, when she awakens her magic, her powers, she loses all of her memory from it, and when she gets accused of murder, she has to work with this hero, with this evil hero, to clear herself and try to regain her memories. Honestly, I love the sound of it already. I am just a huge Laura Thalassa fan in general. I always end up loving her books, so I have high hopes for this one. Also, as a side note, I am doing a little event with Laura in April, the end of April. I'll be moderating for her event at the Ripped Bodice. The tickets are free, so if you are in SoCal, if you're in LA, get yourself a ticket. Another fantasy book that I just got an arc of is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and this is another fantasy romance that I am so excited about because it sounds incredible. If you've read Rebecca Yarros, if you've heard of Rebecca Yarros, you probably know her for her contemporary romances, her contemporary new adult romances, which is all she wrote until this one, which is her first fantasy romance. And the reason why I think it sounds fantastic is because it says, enter the brutal and elite world of a war college for dragon riders. It's a new adult fantasy romance all about dragons and dragon riders. There's also a very cool map in this art copy, and I believe if you get yourself a copy of the hardcover when it comes out, all the first printing editions, they're all going to have some very nice sprayed edges. But anyway, this book is set at a college. The heroine joins this sort of competition to become one of the elite dragon riders, and when you become a dragon rider you do bond with the dragon. Can you tell that I really like the whole dragon part in this book? So I also have very high hopes for this one. I'm really hoping that it's gonna be good. I have read Rebecca Yarros before, but those were only her contemporaries, but I did love them, so hopefully I love this one too. Another fantasy romance that's on my TBR is one that I actually just started reading. It's When a Moth Loved a Bee by Pepper Winters. This is another first fantasy romance by a contemporary romance author, although Pepper is definitely more of a dark romance author than Rebecca Yarros is. So When a Moth Loved a Bee is going to be a dark fantasy romance, and I'm really liking it so far. It's been very intriguing. The world is quite different. Both the main characters have amnesia. They have lost their memories and they wake up in different places, but they keep getting flashes of memories of the other person. The hero wakes up with wolves who end up protecting him, caring for him, and the heroine wakes up with a tribe of people who take care of her. I'm still in the beginning of this one though, so I have no idea where it's going, but I am intrigued enough. And I'm also doing a little thing with Pepper Winters about this book. I'm going to be going live with her, with Pepper Winters, to chat about When a Moth Loved a Bee. It's going to be a Q&A, so if you can, please join, please read the book so we can all discuss it. The live will be happening on March 15th, and the last fantasy romance on my TBR is a series. It's the Immortal Fate series by J. Bree. Right now, the 2 prequel novellas are out, or at least the first one is. The second one is out if you are subscribed to her newsletter. So there's the Scepter, which is the first prequel, The Sword is the second prequel, and then the first full-length book is The Crown of Oaths and Curses, which is coming out in April. It did get pushed back from March. I keep meaning to read the series, so I finally will. I'm gonna read it this spring. I've been excited for something from J. Bree after falling in love with her Bonds That Tie series, and this series, it's not gonna be reverse harem like the Bond series. It's gonna be an MF fantasy romance series. Moving on from all those fantasy romances, another book on my TBR is a fairly recent release. It's Powerless by Elsie Silver. It's the latest book in the Chestnut Spring series, which I did read back in December. I had so much fun with that series, so I am excited to be back with these characters in this small town, and this time it's going to be Jasper and Sloane's romance, which has kind of been teased in the series. It's going to be childhood friends to lovers, which is one of my favorite tropes. Jasper is the hockey cowboy who is basically another Eaton brother. He's their best friend, and I'm feeling like this one is probably gonna be the angstiest one in the series so far. There's also a forbidden romance that I've had my eye on ever since I heard about it and read the blurb. It's The Tangle of Awful by Kay Webster. Kay Webster, for me, her books, I either love them or hate them. There's no in between for me, but when I do find a good book from her, I really do love it. So this book, I immediately wanted to read it because it's an MFM romance with the stepdad and the stepbrother. So it's a forbidden romance in more than one aspect, and I can't wait to read it. Hopefully it's not going to be as insane as The Wild was, but whatever. This new one, it sounds hot and I need to read it. I also really want to get to the Monster Trilogy by Rena Kent. I will admit I've tried quite a few Rena Kent books, but I haven't fallen in love with her just yet. But this new series is a Mulan retelling, so obviously I need to read it. It's a dark mafia romance series based on Mulan. The heroine, she goes undercover as a man to join the Russian military, which is where she meets the hero. The first 2 books are currently out, and we're waiting on the 3rd book to release in April, so I will probably wait until the 3rd one comes out before finally diving into this trilogy. But it just sounds so good, and I don't think I've ever really come across that many Mulan retellings. I also have another mafia romance on my TBR, which is an mafia romance. It's gonna be a new release. It's Mafia Target by Mila Finelli. It's book 4 in the Kings of Italy series. I've only read book 1, but I believe you can read this one fine as a standalone. It's an assassin romance. Like, one of the heroes is an assassin who's been hired to kill the other hero. I don't know if I'll have time to catch up on the series before getting to this fourth book, but honestly, this fourth one is the one that I'm most interested in. I am also doing a Q&A with Mila Finelli on Instagram. That live is happening on March 21st, I believe. I just have a lot of things going on this month. For the next book on my TBR, I have finally decided to get to the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey. I've heard nothing but amazing things for this dark romance series. I do love this author, though I've only read her books under Christy Cunning. Unfortunately, I discovered her right before she passed away, so I guess I've been holding off on reading more of her books just because I don't really want to run out of books to read from her. But I am really excited to finally get to the Mindfuck series. This is a 5-book series. This omnibus is all 5 books in one. I actually don't know all that much about what this book is about. I know that the heroine is not a good person. I think she's a serial killer, and the hero is a cop, or at least some good guy. I'll probably do a vlog when I finally get to this one, just because I know so many people have loved it. And then I do have a bunch of new spring releases that are on my TBR. I have So Close by Sylvia Day. This is the much awaited new release from Sylvia Day. She hasn't released a book for like 5 years, I think. It's been a long time, and this book, this specific book and duet, has been a long time coming because she teased the heck out of this duet at the end of the Crossfire series. So now we're finally getting it, and I kind of have both high and low expectations because I do love the Crossfire series. I do love Sylvia Day because of that series, but I don't think this duet is actually going to be a romance. It's more like a thriller. So I think going into the mindset of this series being more thriller, more suspense, is probably gonna help me with my expectations. Do I wish it was more romance? Yes, but I'll still end up reading it. And then I have the new Emily Henry on my TBR. It's Happy Place. I do have an arc of it on my Kindle. I need to get to it very soon. It honestly sounds like the perfect book for me. I mean, every book of hers always sounds perfect, but this one has fake dating, it's a second chance romance, and it's got some good forced proximity. The main characters are a former couple who have broken up, but they haven't told their friends yet. And every year they go on their yearly getaway with their friends, but because they haven't told anyone that they've broken up, they need to pretend that they're still together. I just adore Emily Henry and her writing. I think she is so funny. Every time I read her books, they crack me up. Another new release is King of Pride by Anna Huang. This one I cannot wait to get to. It's Kai and Isabella's romance, and they were teased so perfectly in King of Wrath, book 1 in the Kings of Sin series. It's a 7-book series. Each book is a standalone based off a deadly sin. So this is going to be Pride, and I already know it's going to be so good because I already love Kai. Book 1 was amazing. I loved it, but I feel like book 2 is going to be even better. And then the last book on my spring TBR is The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. This is another upcoming release, and if anyone likes reading romances with romance author main characters, then add this to your TBR too. The heroine is a romance author who unfortunately has never been in love. The hero is a documentary filmmaker who is forced to create this new reality TV show, which is of course about finding love, and he gets the heroine to be the star of the show. I am gonna assume that this new Christina Lauren book is gonna be like all the other recent Christina Lauren books, where it's not going to be really steamy. Their newer releases are hit or miss for me, but I did really like their last one from 2022, so we'll see how this one goes. And that's it for my spring TBR. These are the books that I really want to get to in the next few months. I'm keeping it short and sweet, so it'll feel really nice if I can get to them all. If you've read any of the books that I mentioned, or at least the ones that aren't out yet, let me know your thoughts. As always, all the books that I mentioned will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye!